Imagine you swipe right on someone. You're thinking love, but she's planning ransom and maybe murder. Ever thought that this could happen? Dushyant Sharma was young, married, father of a newborn, and the apple of the eye of his parents with zero social life and a job. But one day, he suddenly showered, changed clothes, doused himself in cologne, and told his family he had urgent work. They believed him, until his phone went off, and the last thing his wife heard was a faint woman's voice in the background. What happened to Dushyant? Where did he actually go? What was that woman's voice in the background? Welcome to Criminally Curious. This is the shocking true story of India's Tinder killer and the double life both the killer and the victim were secretly living. It was an ordinary evening on May 2, 2018. Until 6:45 p.m., the family's quiet, routine-loving son, Dushyant Sharma, who was just 28 years old, married, a new father, and project manager at a mining firm, suddenly had a change in his behavior. Before that, he came home like he did every day. Same tired eyes, same dusty shoes, the same faint scent of diesel and gravel stuck to his shirt from hours spent on mine sites outside Jaipur. But then, a message pinged on his phone, and whatever it said flipped a switch inside him. Dushyant rushed into the shower, came out dressed sharp in fresh clothes, sprayed cologne like he was meeting someone, and then he asked for the car. "Urgent work," he told his parents. "The company's gravel trucks have been seized by the police. I need to go now." And he left. In the mining world, this was common. So, Rameshwar and Vijayanti, his aging parents, didn't question it. Neither did his wife, Bitu, holding their baby boy. But 1 hour passed, and Dushyant did not return, and that was deeply unlike him. He was a man who barely had friends, he rarely left the house unless work demanded it, and followed the same schedule with clock-like discipline: work, home, family, sleep. So, by 9:15 p.m., everyone in the family became worried. His father tried calling, but the line disconnected, and 30 more minutes passed. The phone rang again. This time, Bitu called, and finally, Dushyant picked up. His voice was too calm. He first said the police were demanding over $10,000 fine to release the trucks. Then he insisted that she go to bed, and said he would be back later, and the line went dead. But before the call ended, Bitu heard something she didn't expect. There was a faint woman's voice in the background. She wanted to ask, "Who is that?" But before that, the line disconnected, and Dushyant's phone was switched off or completely unreachable. The Sharma family, still scarred from old wounds, now faced a horrifying déjà vu. Years ago, they had buried not just one, but 2 sons, both lost to accidents. Dushyant was their last surviving child, their final hope. So, when he didn't come home that night, the family literally went crazy in panic. One cousin grabbed a motorbike. Dushyant's mother got on the back. Together, they combed every street and alley in the neighborhood. They even checked hospitals, police stations, and roadside eateries. But he was nowhere to be found. Because Dushyant had never gone to deal with police or trucks in the first place. Instead, he had gone to meet a woman, whose name was Priya. What no one in the Sharma household could have imagined was that this soft-spoken, homebound family man had been living a double life, built through online dating apps. A life that was about to crash into something deadly. By the time the sun rose on May 3rd, Dushyant Sharma was mysteriously gone. And the woman he went to meet, Priya, wasn't just any woman, but sinister. 90% marks in 10th standard, awards in debate, dance, academics. Priya Seth was the pride of her town. But just a few years later, she was a changed woman. She was strutting through high-end clubs in Jaipur, calling herself Neha, chain-smoking, and drinking with strangers. But why? What happened to her? It started in Phalna, a sleepy Rajasthani town near the leopard-filled Jawai Hills. Her father, Professor Ashok Seth, taught political science at the local college. And at home, he raised his daughter like a soldier, disciplined, focused, unstoppable. Priya also thrived under pressure, but beneath her smartness was a different story. Priya had a short temper, and she used to shout, break things, and pick fights. Her parents weren't abusive, not even neglectful, just strict. Then the rage, it wasn't because of them. It felt like it came from somewhere deeper. In 2012, she left Phalna for Jaipur to study and chase the Public Services Commission dream. But Jaipur was a big place. Here, she didn't shine, she disappeared. Her clothes were plain, her phone was outdated. Her classmates flaunted designer bags and dined in cafes she couldn't afford. The $250 her father sent monthly vanished on rent, fees, and food. And she wasn't okay with being invisible. So, she went looking for a way to be visible again. Online, newspapers, job sites. That's where she found a mysterious ad that promised quick money without any degree or interview. Just hard cash. In reality, it was a prostitution ring that targets girls exactly like her. Small town, smart, broke, and burning with ambition. They didn't push. Instead, they manipulated. They said she wasn't beautiful enough, but she could be if she had money, confidence, and makeup. And within days, Priya became a totally new person. She took the name Neha. And just like that, she was no longer dependent on anyone. She was walking into luxury clubs, dressed in brands her classmates couldn't even afford, sipping whiskey, laughing loudly. Some said she was still studying, sitting in class by day and vanishing by night. Others said she was deep into the city's underground, moving money, men, and secrets. She was literally living a double life. She didn't think of it as selling herself. She thought of it as buying freedom. On paper, she was still the small-town girl chasing the civil service dream. But in reality, she was playing a whole different game. And that game was about to turn deadly. Priya didn't carry a weapon, because her charm was sharper enough than any knife, and her lies were deadlier than bullets. By the time anyone truly saw through her, they were already trapped. Their bank accounts emptied, reputations shredded, and in some cases, futures ruined. How? Using manipulation. That's the story of Priya. Or, as some knew her in the dark corners of the internet, Neha. At first glance, it looked like she was just another college dropout trying to survive in a tough world. But survival quickly turned into strategy, and strategy into a nasty scheme. Her game wasn't intimacy, it was intimidation. A man would book a room, she'd walk in with promises, and then, like a switch, she'd threaten to cry rape unless a hefty amount of money was handed over immediately. For her, sex was never the product, it was the bait. Her real business was exploiting the fear. For that reason, she didn't chase every man. She went after only the ones who had the most to lose. Middle-aged, married, wealthy men from out of town. All she had to do was tap it once, and the whole thing shattered. At first, she posed as an escort, but soon she claimed to be a pimp. She'd send photos of fake women, take advance payments in hotel rooms, then vanish before the client knew he was scammed. By the time they realized it, the fear of humiliation had already sealed their lips. So, they stayed quiet, and she stayed rich. This cycle kept going for months, and not a single man dared to go public. But in 2014, her luck slipped. One man, braver or maybe more desperate than the rest, filed a police complaint in Jaipur. He accused her of luring him under false pretenses and threatening him. As a result, Priya was arrested for the immoral traffic prevention, a law meant to tackle illegal sex work and human trafficking. But just like always, she twisted the narrative. She claimed it was all a misunderstanding, and she walked out on bail within days. For a while, she laid low, not out of guilt, but because she knew the system was watching. But her hunger didn't stop. Designer bags, perfume, luxurious evenings in posh hotels, she needed more. So, she wanted something bigger, something permanent. So, she teamed up with a carpenter. The plan? Rob an ATM machine. A Bank of India ATM, to be precise. With a gas cutter, they tried to melt through the metal vault in the dead of night after disabling the CCTV. But no matter how well planned, desperation always makes you sloppy. Police officers on night patrol spotted something off and moved in. Priya ran, but her partner didn't. Eventually, she was also arrested hours later, but the next day, she was out again. Time and again, the system failed to hold her. Priya had also learned something important. One-time jobs weren't enough. She needed something more stable, more permanent, something like a human ATM. And in 2017, she finally found what she was looking for. It was Gajal Singh, a successful businessman from Noida. He was confident, wealthy, and unmarried. The perfect mark. She didn't rush this one. She moved into his house, shared dinners, whispered promises, and slowly bled him dry. At first, Gajal didn't notice the leaks, but over time, things started to crack. Her demands were endless. Money, jewelry, gifts. Her mood swings were worse. Her obsession was dangerous. When Gajal finally tried to break it off, Priya snapped. To her, love wasn't real at all. It was a power dynamic. So, she filed a rape complaint against him, demanded nearly $5,000 to settle the matter. But Gajal wasn't like the others. He didn't scare easily as he wasn't hiding anything. So, he refused to pay. But she made threats to throw acid on his sister, upload her photos on escort websites. She also came up with fake pregnancy claims. But Gajal kept fighting back and never gave up. He started recording her calls in which she openly admitted to filing false complaints and made threats without hesitation and remorse. Armed with this evidence, Gajal approached the police, and this time they listened. Across major Indian cities, there was a growing awareness of a disturbing trend: blackmail rackets using fake cases as a weapon, and Priya fit the pattern perfectly. Naturally, she was arrested quickly, but just 5 days later, she was released again. This time, she went one step further. She gave a public interview and told her side of the story to the Hindustan Times, flipping the narrative once more. She accused Gajal of abandonment, abuse, and of using her. But while the cameras focused on her painted image of innocence behind the scenes, another storm was quietly building. Because Gajal wasn't her only victim, and Priya, she wasn't done yet. Priya had barely stepped out of prison when she was back on the hunt. But this time, she wasn't settling for a few bucks. So, she turned back to the app that had always delivered: Tinder, the leading dating app in India. The trick was simple: swipe, match, bait. It had worked before. It would work again. And there she found him, Dushyant Sharma. He'd left school after 10th grade and thrown himself into Bollywood, working as an extra, dreaming big, earning small. When his shot at producing fell apart and left him drowning in debt, he ran home to Rajasthan. In Jaipur, he bumped into his childhood buddy, Laksha Walia. Around the same time, he also matched with Priya on Tinder. The connection was quick. They moved in together, told the landlady they were married, and the lies just kept building. Laksha became a regular visitor, and the trio became a toxic triangle with drugs, alcohol, and secrets. Priya was the main supplier. Cocaine, booze, all were funded by blackmail. Dushyant thought she was a travel agent, but by the time he saw her for who she really was, it was too late. He was broke, jobless, dependent, and addicted. On the other hand, she tattooed his name on her arm, branding him as hers. And when she discovered his debt of $30,000, she came up with an idea. She wasn't going to pay it off. She was going to steal it from someone else. She returned to Tinder again, and this time not for a fling, but for a ransom. Enter Dushyant Sharma. He was just 28, married, had one kid, a regular job at a mining firm. But online, he was Vivan Kohli, a fake billionaire from Delhi with expensive suits, fancy cars, curated photos, fake life, a classic magnet of real danger. Priya took the bait. They started chatting and then meeting. Sharma sneaked out of work, lying to his wife, chasing what he thought was love. Priya also led him on, never getting physical, just promising more, because that's all she needed to keep him hooked. Meanwhile, she set the trap. She told Laksha that the target had bothered her, booked the bait, and set the date, and the day was May 2nd, 2018. Dushyant left home with wine and condoms. He thought he was heading for a romantic night. He walked right into their meeting place, Eden Garden Apartments. He sat on the couch. Priya went to the washroom. And then the attack happened. 2 men burst out. Sharma was tackled, tied to a chair. He screamed and begged Priya to call the cops, but she was the mastermind of it. Why would she call anybody? That's when he knew she was not in love with him. He was scammed. They searched his pockets expecting gold, bank cards, and some proof of wealth. But Sharma was no millionaire. He was a fraud, just a factory worker playing dress-up online. Priya couldn't hold her anger. She made all these plans for nothing. Sharma confessed that he lied about everything. It was all for show. Desperate, he offered almost $10,000. He also said he had a check from a friend named Mahesh. To verify it, they even made him call Mahesh on speaker. But Mahesh killed the hope. No funds, he said. Didn't deposit it. Priya went mad at this, and more beatings followed. Then, suddenly, Dushyant's phone rang. It was his father. Ignored. Then again, his wife Bitu called. There were 2 missed calls already. 1 more might trigger alarms. So, Priya and others panicked. They gave him the phone, threatened him to answer the call and sound normal. He did everything accordingly. Dushyant's voice was shaky, urgent. He told his family the police had seized 7 trucks and were demanding over $11,000. Then came the line that was unusual for him. Don't wait for me. Go to bed. But Bitu wasn't stupid. She heard it. She sensed the hesitation, the fear. But could it help in time? The second the call ended, his mouth was gagged, and a plastic bag went over his head, not to kill him, but just enough to choke him, just enough to make him beg. Laksha had thought this was about revenge as Priya told him Dushyant harassed her. That's why Laksha agreed to help. Beat him up, scare him, maybe get some money. But now, the truth was clear. This was a cash grab. Dushyant was a target, not a predator. Still, Laksha stayed. Dushyant took hit after hit. Hours passed. He collapsed from the pain. 1 captor went out to grab dinner, because in this house of horrors, torture paused for takeaway. When they came back, Dushyant was barely conscious and falling apart. He cried. He offered money. He begged to live. But Priya had already decided. She thought he'd be a rich guy who could be exploited. Instead, he was just a local, middle-class guy. Priya also felt scammed and made up her mind to end him. She grabbed the bag against Dushyant's face, pulled it tight. But he was still breathing. So she took a pillow to smother him. But still, she couldn't do it. Then she left and came back with a knife. She gave it to Dushyant. What followed next was back-to-back 10 stabs, all to the neck. The room went quiet. Blood soaked the mattress. Meanwhile, at the bank, Rameshwar was still pleading for a transfer, still believing his son could be saved. But his son was already dead, and now the killers were facing a problem they hadn't planned for. What do they do with a body when their only plan was money? At this point came a mysterious bag, what looked like an ordinary suitcase. Purple, wheeled, $20 luggage bag. But inside it wasn't clothes, it was a body. Priya and her team dumped it near Jaipur Delhi Highway near the village of Kukas. And while returning, they made a new plan. The idea was to call Dushyant's father and demand for a ransom of $11,000, or he'd be dead. Around 10 a.m. in the morning, when they dialed his father and said this, the father panicked. He said he could arrange $3,500 only. Priya jumped on the call, screamed at him, and gave him 20 minutes. Then she hung up. Rameshwar ran to the bank immediately, frantically. He handed over the account number, but the manager shook his head. Since the Know Your Customer or KYC formalities were incomplete, no transfer was allowed. Rameshwar was told to go to the account's home branch. No exceptions. His son was dying and he was denied his own money by the bank. At the same time, Dushyant's family called the cops too. Inspector Gurvendra Singh took the case. He looked at the boy's photo, and then he first pulled call records, and there, a number kept popping up, Om Prakash. His number turned out to be off at that time, but the inspector knew that number was a trail. Inspector Singh saw the desperation in Dushyant's father's eyes and promised him just one thing: "I'll find him." However, soon enough, the police eventually found out the luggage bag dumped in Kukas village. Initially, they didn't think murder. They thought of a bomb. The bomb squad came in and opened it. Within seconds, the smell hit first, and then the horror. It was Dushyant Sharma. After Dushyant was killed, Laksha had been sent home. Change clothes, stay put. Meanwhile, Priya and Dushyant scrubbed the apartment clean, mopped the floors, burned the evidence like rags, towels, like they were erasing history. Only the body remained. They didn't have a bag big enough. So, they jumped into Dushyant's Hyundai i10, drove 7 kilometers and bought a giant purple trolley. The price was paid by debit card. On the way back, Dushyant's phone buzzed and said $3,500 had been deposited. Seeing that, they switched off Dushyant's phone, stopped at a State Bank of India's ATM, withdrew around $280, which is the daily withdrawal limit. Then they vanished with the body. But you know, there is no perfect crime. Criminals always leave behind some trails, and Inspector Singh was just waiting for it. He talked to Dushyant's friends, and from one of his friends, he got one clue: there was a girl in Bahaj Nagar. Singh immediately activated his informants to watch the streets and look for Dushyant's car. Meanwhile, Dushyant's father, Rameshwar, panicked as the money was transferred, but his son's phone was silent. Inspector Singh told the banks to flag every transaction, and that's when they discovered Dushyant's body. His cousin confirmed it, and after knowing this, his father collapsed at the hospital. And Priya? She was eating pizza miles away. She and Laksha had showered, slept, eaten like nothing happened. The next morning, all three met again. The plan was to stay in Johor, drain the money slowly. But panic set in, because the bag was found. They understood the police were close, so they ran. They drove toward Gandhinagar railway station. They had a fake number plate in hand but forgot to put it on. Before they could change it, an informant spotted them. Inspector Singh arrived in plain clothes in an unmarked vehicle. And there it was, the white I-10. At first, he approached it like a normal innocent guy, and at that moment, the police arrested them. Initially, when Inspector Singh asked about the car, the murder, they were dead silent. But finally, Priya broke it and confessed. They were escorted to Jar police station, and in September 2018, the courtroom was packed. Dushyant and Laksha stood like shadows. All eyes laid on Priya, but she was cold, composed, and wearing expensive shoes, branded watch. She asked to smoke inside the prison. The public couldn't stop staring. Meanwhile, evidence hit hard. Blood traces, CCTV, the suitcase shopkeeper, the case was strong against them. Naturally, at this moment, they cracked. Priya said she planned it. Dushyant did it, and Laksha helped. But Dushyant blamed Priya for everything. Laksha said he just watched. And for 5 years, the trial dragged until Diwali 2023. Judge Ajit Kumar Hinger declared all three guilty of kidnapping, murder, and conspiracy. The punishment? Life imprisonment. But after that, Priya started giving interviews, online, on camera. She had no remorse, no regret. She said her victims deserved it, and laughed about conning another man after Dushyant's death. What's striking was she dismissed it all as public service. People were horrified. If Priya was guilty, why did it feel like she got exactly what she wanted? Most importantly, what drove a smart girl like her to do something like this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you think this is the only damage happening in our society, you probably didn't know about this.